Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bible Study. I'm R.K. Brown, and I'm glad to be with you. I've been missing doing this. I've been out on the road playing music because that's what I do for a living, and I'm pretty tired. We had an Iron Man weekend this weekend. Man, it was pretty non-sleep intensive. I guess I might say it that way. But anyway, I'm here, and I'm really glad to be here. And I don't know if you saw the title. Check it out. He seeks a quarrel against us. Now I'm going to show you some scripture, a couple of different scriptural references where a couple of kings misunderstood things and thought that a quarrel was being raised against them. They thought that an opposing king was trying to make war with them. Now, the lesson that I'm going to teach is not a perfect parallel with what I'm going to be talking about afterwards. I'm going to be talking about a speech that took place on Thursday, September 1st, 2022. Anybody who's watching probably knows what I'm talking about. It was a big deal. In fact, I asked a friend afterwards, I said, did you see that speech the other night? And he said, yeah, I've been mad about it ever since. So I think y'all probably know what I'm talking about, and I'll dig a little deeper into it when the time comes. And I'll say names and blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to read you a couple of stories and show you how things can be misunderstood, but also how that there's a reason why they can be misunderstood. And there's a situation going on in our real lives that's not being misunderstood. And so hopefully I'll be able to pull this together and make it make sense. We'll see, because here we go. 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 1. Now Naaman, captain of the host of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master and honorable, because by him the Lord had given deliverance unto Syria. He was also a mighty man in valor, but he was a leper. And the Syrians had gone out by companies and had brought away captive out of the land of Israel a little maid, and she waited on Naaman's wife. So I want to bring something to your attention here, that this little girl that is about to be an important part of this conversation here for just a second. Now, the lesson's not about her, but she is a captive from Israel. So the Syrians and the Israelites have obviously had some contention here. And so there's a kind of a reason for the king of Israel thinking what I'm about to tell you he's thinking. And she, the little maid, said unto her mistress, Would God that my Lord were with the prophet that is in Samaria, for he would recover him of his leprosy. Now, would to God or would God basically means I wish. So he must have been good to her, because she said, I wish my master would go into Israel and see the prophet, because he would heal him of his leprosy. So, I'm guessing Naaman and his wife treated this little girl pretty well. And one went in and told his lord, saying, Thus and thus said the maid that is of the land of Israel. So now they're going in and telling Naaman that, this little girl that's your little servant in your house that waits on your wife, that helps your wife, has said something about this prophet in Israel, that he could heal you of your leprosy. And the king of Syria said, Go to. Anytime in the King James Bible you see that phrase, go to, it means come now. Go to, or come now. Go, and I will send a letter unto the king of Israel. And he departed and took with him 10 talents of silver, and 6,000 pieces of gold, and 10 changes of raiment. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel. And it just so happens, I did a little research on this before the lesson, that the king of Israel is Jehoram, who is the son of Ahab. He is a wicked king, which is the reason why the Lord had given victory, or, given some, through Naaman, had given victory against the children of Israel. And that's how he ended up with that little maid. Let's see. Okay, I'll just start at verse 6 here. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel, saying, Now, when the letter is come unto thee, behold, I have therewith sent Naaman, my servant, to thee, that thou mayest recover him of his leprosy. And it came to pass, when the king of Israel had read the letter, that he rent his clothes, and said, Am I God to kill and make alive? Wherefore consider, I pray you, and see how he seeketh a quarrel against me. So Jehoram, king of Israel, who I'm certain that that's the king during this time, has said, anybody in their right mind knows that I, a mortal man, even though I'm a king, I can't heal somebody of their leprosy. I've got lepers in my own country, and I can't heal them. What would make you think that I could heal the leprosy of a military commander, a captain of the military? Basically, he would be the Syrian version of Joab, who was David's king, right? So, you get the idea of, this man's position. And so Jehoram is saying, dude, there's no way that I can heal a man of his leprosy, and he knows that, so he's trying to seek a fight with me. So when I send back a letter saying there's no way that I can heal a man of his leprosy, then he's going to start a fight with me. That's what he's thinking. And he has reason to think that because he's already experienced some defeat from the king of Syria. So he has reason to believe that. It's not unfounded that he would think like that. And of course, Elisha the prophet gets wind of it, and he causes Naaman to be healed of his leprosy. But the king didn't have anything to do with that. The king was tripping because he thought that the king of Assyria had a quarrel with him, and he thought that for good reason. And that's kind of my point. There's a reason why people can misconstrue things like this. And I'm going to show you another example. And again, we're going to see somebody misconstrue some intentions of somebody else. King David's intentions are going to be misconstrued. So we're in 2 Samuel chapter 5, and it came to pass, at verse 1, and it came to pass after this, that the king of the children of Ammon died, and Hanun his son reigned in his stead. Then said David, I will show kindness unto Hanun the son of Nahash, as his father showed kindness unto me. And David sent to comfort him by the hand of his servants for his father. And David's servants came into the land of the children of Ammon. Now the Ammonites were actually the children of Lot. And there had been a lot of contention between Ammon and Israel, and Moab and Israel. Lot basically, after the Sodom and Gomorrah event, Lot went into a cave with his two daughters, which were the only ones left, his two virgin daughters, and maybe they thought they were the only people in the world or whatever. They knew their father didn't have any seed, any male to carry on his seed, so they got him drunk and slept with their father, and he impregnated both of them, one night and one the next night. And Noah got so drunk that he actually knew not of it. He didn't even realize that it was happening. And then they gave birth to Moab and Ammon. So the Ammonites, or the children of Ammon, which is this group of people that we're talking about, led by this king Hanun, are the descendants of Lot. And so David is actually at peace with the children of Lot, or at least this group of the children of Lot, until this happens. Verse 3, And the princes of the children of Ammon said unto Hunan, their lord, Thinkest thou that David doth honor thy father, that he hath sent comforters unto thee? Has not David rather sent his servants unto thee to search the city and to spy it out and to overthrow it? So they have a little bit less reason to believe that because David was friendly to Hanun's father. But nevertheless, in the big scheme of things, a kingdom would not, a king would be distrustful of somebody coming in and acting friendly. This case is not as clear cut as the other one. They really had no reason based on past history with David to think such a thing, but they did based on maybe past history with other kings in other nations. So these things happen, and there's a reason that they happen. Now, of course, in this situation, verse 4, wherefore Hanun took David's servants and shaved off the one half of their beards and cut their garments in the middle, even to their buttocks, and sent them away. When they told it unto David, he sent to meet them, because the men were greatly ashamed. And the king said, tarry at Jericho until your beards be grown, and then return. And when the children of Ammon saw that they stank before David, the children of Ammon sent and hired the Syrians of Betharab. What is that word there? Yeah, Betharab. And the Syrians of Zobah, and 20,000 horsemen, 20,000 footmen, and King Maacah 1,000 men, and of Ishtab 12,000 men. And when David heard of it, he sent Joab and all the host of the mighty men. And then, of course, we jump down to verse 18. And the Syrians fled before Israel, and David slew the men of 700 chariots of the Syrians and 40,000 horsemen, and smote Shobach, the captain of their host, who died there, and so on and so on. So this was very unfortunate for the children of Ammon. And even the thing that's crazy is as I was reading there, it hit me, that the children of Ammon, when they realized that they stank in the eyes of David, they hired mercenaries to come in and try to fight against David, instead of coming to him and saying, David, we're sorry. We misunderstood. Sorry. We shouldn't have done that. So, these things can happen. And there is generally a reason why somebody might misunderstand this, because these things do happen. People do provoke other people to war, which leads me to the speech that Joe Biden gave on Thursday, September the 1st. I know a lot of you saw it. He had soldiers standing behind him. They brought down the house lights and made that red background. It looked very Hitler-esque, actually. It looked very Nazi-esque or Stalin-esque, if you will. And it was crazy. There's never really been a speech given like that by a president against half of the country. The speech was against the quote-unquote MAGA Republicans, the Trump supporters, and he said that the Trump supporters were a danger to democracy. Well, first of all, Mr. President, we are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. We do have some democracy within our government, but it's democracy by way of representation. And we follow a constitution. We are not, I repeat, not a democracy. So when he says that MAGA Republicans are a danger to our democracy, we don't have a democracy. But yes, I would say that he's right. MAGA Republicans are a danger to democracy, because we're not a democracy. We are a republic. We do have democratic, components, but we are a republic, constitutional republic. But having said that, what they're trying to say is that the MAGA people are violent, and that the Trump supporters are violent. And that's just not, historically, that's just not been the case. They might try to point out Charlottesville or something like that, but that's just not been the case. And what the actual case is that the people on the left are the violent people. Generally, they're more emotional, less logical, and emotions don't care about facts. And so They get all amped up about whatever their SJW cause is, and they go and destroy cities. And usually they destroy poor people's areas. Usually. They're probably not going to very often go into rich people areas because rich people will defend their areas. And but they go and destroy cities. We saw it during the Trump presidency, how, some cities like Oregon, they were, in battle for 150 days straight or something like that. So it is the left that has a tendency towards violence. But I believe that what Joe Biden has done here is he's sent a message to us trying to provoke a war. I think he's trying to provoke because they need civil war, because it does appear like the people on the right will win in the upcoming election, if there is an election. And so what I believe that he's done is that he has put out that message saying that the MAGA Republicans are a danger to, quote unquote democracy, which I've already said we're not a democracy. But, and we keep hearing our politicians, even the Republicans, keep talking about our democracy. Just putting that out there. When you hear people talk about that, keep that in mind. That lets you know kind of who they really are, what they really think about our government. But anyway, I believe that he's put this out there to try to provoke a civil war, to try to provoke some unhinged right-wing person, because they're out there, of course, just like they're on the left, they're on the right as well. They're those people that are, out there on the fringes, if you will, kind of unhinged people that might go out and do some catastrophic act against people on the left and stir up strife, maybe stir up a civil war. Because, it might be that some unhinged person on the right might go out and do some big deal, some big thing, and then some group or some person on the left do that, and there's a little tit for tat for a while, and the next thing you know, man, we're in civil war. And I believe that that's what Joe Biden has done. I don't think, like these situations in the Bible here, I don't think I've misunderstood this. And I'm guarantee you that anybody watching will probably agree with me. Now, I want to talk to the fact checkers here for a second. Before you take me down, I want you to know something. I want you to think about something. If we go into a civil war, if you're young enough, if you're a millennium or Gen Z or, something like that, if you're a young adult, you're going to be fighting the war. Now, maybe you're okay with that. And if you are, then you take me down, whatever. But if you're not okay with going out and taking up arms against your neighbors who have a different political view than you do, well, you want to listen to me. You want to hear what I'm saying. I've got something important to say here. So I believe that that's one component of it. But I also believe that it's quite possible that people on the left may actually stage false flag events, and blame it on people on the right to get strife stirred up, because people on the right are generally pretty calm. People on the right, even our politicians, even the Republican politicians, are not proactive. They're kind of reactive. And but the left, say whatever you want to about them, they are definitely proactive. They definitely believe what they believe. They're generally ideological. They're not generally pragmatic. People on the right are more pragmatic. They're just like, I want to live my life. I want to take care of my family. I want to have a good life. I want to live the American dream. I don't want to be involved. I don't want to think about this stuff. It makes me nervous. It makes me upset. It raises my blood pressure. I don't want to be thinking about it. And so the people on the right just try to bury their head in the sand sometime. Well, this ain't a time to bury your head in the sand, because he has. Unlike the kings in the Bible, I believe that President Biden, quote unquote President Biden, has tried to provoke us. He also, basically say that we on the right, now I'll just level with you here. I'm probably going to support DeSantis over Trump. If DeSantis runs, I would probably support him over Trump. But Nevertheless, they say that the people on the right don't believe in the rule of law, don't believe in the Constitution. We're the conservatives. We're the ones that do believe in the rule of law and the Constitution. We're trying to conserve and preserve the rights given by God laid out in the Constitution. So he's accused us of that and said that to say that we are trying to destroy an election that was voted by the people. That basically if you're an election denier, and if you believe that Trump actually won the 2020 election, then you deny, what's truth, they say, and that you're trying to overthrow the will of the people. Well, what about in 2016? The Democrats did the same thing with the whole Russia collusion thing, all that stuff. So they're okay with saying it now about us, about the people on the right, when they were doing the same thing in 2016. And I'm going to say something, and listen to me very carefully, because I don't want to be misunderstood about what I'm about to say. But there's a reason I'm saying it. I read Mein Kampf one time, and it's a pretty boring read. It just drags on and drags on and drags on. But I did get one thing out of it, because Hitler said that when you do propaganda, it doesn't matter if the other side's opinion has merit or not. You can never, ever point out that the other side has a valid point. And that's precisely what the left is doing. They're not ever going to point out that they did the same thing in 2016. They're just going to point at us and say that we are election deniers, therefore we're trying to, undo the Constitution and the will of the people and all that kind of stuff. So, why am I saying all this? I believe that they are trying to provoke a civil war. The day after the speech, Friday, the day after the speech, MSNBC, some people on MSNBC came on and said, we are in civil war. And some people on the left didn't think that that Joe Biden didn't go far enough in his speech against the people on the right. So, I believe that they are trying to provoke a civil war. Now, what am I saying? Now, fact checkers, listen to me, because this concerns you as well. You're Americans. If you are Americans, this concerns you. And even if you're not Americans, if an American civil war is going to affect the whole world, it'll affect the world economically and all that kind of thing. Now, I believe personally that if we on the right went into a civil war, that we would probably win. I would say that most of the retired military or, discharged military people are right-wing people. If I had to guess, I would guess that. And they all have weapons. There are weapons in America. Both sides have weapons. We could have us a serious civil war. But I believe that it would destroy the country. I said this a long time ago. I don't know if it's true or not, but I said it seems to me that if a civil war broke out in the United States, that the military would have to not involve itself in a civil war if possible, because the military would have to be watching the borders with Russia and China. Because if a civil war broke out, then surely Russia and China would be considering pouncing on us. So a civil war is bad. We do not want a civil war. You do not want to be going out and killing your neighbors. I know we have serious political disagreement here in this country, but we don't want to be killing our neighbors. We want peace. What did Jesus say? In Matthew chapter 5, man, everything's in chapter 5 today. Verse 9, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. We want to be making peace. We don't want to be making war because it would destroy the country. Yes, the left has gone in and destroyed cities at times, or, not destroyed, but wreaked havoc on cities and destroyed the homes and businesses of mostly poor people. And a lot of black people have had their homes and businesses destroyed, and they're usually or very often, maybe not usually, but often they support left-wing causes. But we don't want to be at war. It would destroy our country. Yeah, the idea of taking our country back kind of sounds good, but it's not something that we want to do. The Apostle Paul said in Romans chapter 12, verse 18, if it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. If it be possible, we need to try to live peaceably with our neighbors to the left, politically speaking. We all need to try to live peaceably. There are things as Americans that we all do have in common. Now, I'm not a communist in any kind of way. I'm a capitalist. I'm a free market capitalist. So we don't have that in common. But I think that if we search, I think we'll find that we have things in common. I have some friends, a couple of musician friends that are pretty hard left-leaning people, but we all get along. We don't try to fight each other over these issues. We get along. These people are my friends. And you probably have friends as well that are left-leaning. This is how we need to be towards people. And I put these verses are right after the last verse I left, or I just read, but I put them in a little screen by themselves so that I can make an impact. The Apostle Paul in Romans 12, verse 19 says, dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in doing so thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. We need to be merciful as much as possible, as much as lieth in us, as much as lies in us. We need to try to be at peace with all men. We don't want war. Innocent people die in war. Soldiers, of course, people that are fighting die in war. Jesus said, if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. So soldiers die. But innocent people, there's always collateral damage in war. We don't want that for our country. We want to be at peace with one another. I believe that I'm not misunderstanding what Joe Biden is trying to do here. I think he's trying to provoke the right into action so that they can then send out the military against the people on the right. If they send out the military, of course, then it's going to stir up a big civil war. And if they send out the military, is the military going to guard the borders against China and Russia? Or is Joe Biden, as a Chinese agent, trying to throw away the country, trying to give the country to the Chinese? And I'll tell you what, I wouldn't put it past him. I wouldn't put it past him. His son Hunter had all kind of dealings with the Chinese and accepted money and all that stuff from the Chinese government. I wouldn't put that past him. It's possible that that's not the case, but I'm just saying. So I realize that I've made some bold statements here. Things can be misunderstood, but there's a reason that they can be misunderstood, and the reason is because stuff like that does happen. And I believe that stuff like that is happening in this case. I believe that Joe Biden intentionally meant to provoke half the country and try to provoke a civil war. Do with that as you will. Call me crazy. Say I'm way overreading this thing. And I'll say to you, go back and watch the speech. There's never been a speech given like that to the American public before. Now, I don't even know if I'm still on. So that's my lesson. I hope you got the point. We need to be at peace. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. We need to be at peace with all men as much as possible. Now, I will say this. Obviously, we need to try to beat them in the political arena. Obviously, we have a right as voters to try to beat them in the political arena. That's where we need to try to keep it. Not hot war. I realize that we're in a culture war, and it's kind of a civil war, but not hot war. But I will say this. If it gets to the point where a war does break out, you have to defend your family. You have to defend your household. You have to give your wife and children defense. The Apostle Paul said in 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8, but if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house. He hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. A man has to provide protection for his own house. Now, the context of that was food and that kind of thing. But if a man is not willing to provide for his own house, those of his own household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. So if civil war should break out, you do have to protect your household. It's simple as that. But as much as possible, we need to be at peace with all men, because we don't want our country destroyed. We might win on the right. We might defeat them in a civil war. We probably would, to be honest with you. And it might even be that the Democrats know that. The real super hard left, communist, socialist types may know that, may be aware of that, and actually want that to happen so that they can push further the destruction of America, and they're willing to sacrifice their lesser brethren in order to be able to bring about their quote-unquote noble cause, right? So that's my lesson. I hope it made sense to you. Let's be at peace, y'all. Love one another. Let's be good to each other. Let's love one another. We can work these things out if we try to keep, cooler heads always prevail, right? That's my lesson. I hope you fact checkers won't take me down, because this concerns you as well. If you're watching by Facebook and or YouTube, then smash the like button. Also catch me as Bible Study with R.K. Brown on BitChute, and R.K. Shades on Rumble, and also Bible Study with R.K. Brown on Truth Social, where I link my Rumble videos to Truth Social. All right, that's my lesson. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you're thinking about what I'm saying. Until, Lord willing, I'll see you next Sunday. Good night. God bless.